Hey there, my name is David Scarpetta, and Happy New Year. I feel like 2000 was just like yesterday, and the Y2K bug, and God knows what else. But I wanted to talk about both to my friends, people who know me on YouTube, other people who know me as an online marketer, an entrepreneur, and a businessman. I wanted to talk about beginning and starting and taking the first steps. And, obviously a lot of people talk about resolutions, to resolute, to resolve an issue. And a lot of the times, people are like, well, how do you get started in a business? What do you do? How did you manage to do all this? I get a lot of these questions, and the answers are really within you. And it's really, really simple. It's actually a simple solution, but a very hard process. And I just wanted to show you guys, I've been in business for a very long time, probably since the ripe old age of like 19. And I wanted to show you where I took my first steps. So one of my first companies was a video game retail store. I loved video games at the time, and I wanted to be involved in them. And I just want to show you guys and I don't want anybody to laugh out there, okay? I want to show you what my original advertisement was, okay? Here it is. I've saved it all these years. Look at that. That, my friends, is probably the worst advertisement ever. I actually didn't have a computer. So I had to go to the library, and I used a word processor at the library on like an Apple IIe or something ridiculous because they were totally behind the times. And obviously there was no graphics programs back then that were able to run on a public computer. So I actually X-Acto knifed out and cut out all these little things, and I whited out little other things, and I took this with my phone number, right? I had a phone at the time, the local phone number, and I made copies of this, and I put it on cars all over the local area. Now this is like, this is circa 1998, so it was a little different. We didn't have the internet, wasn't as prolific, and there wasn't as much competition. But again, I took the first steps. I woke up and I said, I'm going to do this. And a lot of people think that they're like, oh, I really always wanted to do that. I always thought about doing that. And really, it's really in your head. The action, the game plan, everything is there. But you've got to take that, and you've got to take it, and you got to push it on the outside. And you actually have to project those ideas into reality. So my first step, even though I wasn't very happy with it, I was happy because I had an opportunity and I really wanted to execute an idea, but I just went for it. I just did it. And win, lose, or draw, I was like, what? I'm gonna do this. I sat in the store that I co-rented with a buddy of mine, and I probably passed these out for about a week and a half, 2 weeks straight, and I was unlucky and I didn't see any. I was like, oh. But then one day, probably in the afternoon, I was eating some cheap Chinese lunch, and I was just like, I was like, oh my God, there's a guy walking through the door, and he had a box of Nintendo games, and he had this sheet in his hand, and I was just like, I was blown away because I actually seen a result from what I was doing. And you know what? I was, my mind was like, I was down in the dumps. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. But after 2 weeks of passing things out, somebody actually caught wind, took this, and said, hey, I want to sell my Nintendo games. Now, he didn't buy anything from me, but he came in and he traded in his Nintendo games. And it was just it was phenomenal because my message actually got across. During a time when we didn't have social media, we didn't have the internet as you guys know it. It was a little bit different, actually a lot different. And it was, it was a lot of hard work, manual labor to get the message out there. I didn't have a budget. I didn't have any money. I had my own personal collection of video games. And I literally took this is my first thing, and I used it for the first 3 or 4 months of my business. And then, when I got enough money to buy a computer, I upgraded and decided to get did this in Paint or something. And I got this. This was my upgrade to it. It's a little dirty, mind you, but it's almost, 20 years old. So I stylized the fonts, I did all this stuff. And now this is, again, there's a lot of mistakes that I made along the way. And they were learning mistakes. Everything from buying the wrong games to, setting up credit card processing accounts to, advertising, what advertising mediums. I mean, I even went so far as as you can see the evolution, I wouldn't even gotten to a color page, a full color page ad. Look at that. I've gotten full color page, but this is a quarter page, and this was one of the first magazine pages I was in. And this was, during Game Boy Color days. Look at that. And of course you could tell the age of it because you see this woman on the back, it's a bridal thing. We don't rock those hairdos anymore. Not again. Not yet anyway, right? So as you can see, somebody who didn't have a lot of resources looked at the creativity and put forth the effort and projected those efforts for, back from 1998, late 97, early 98. And if I could do it, you could do it. And there's so many people that I've met along the way that I didn't even know that they knew me and what I did. And they're like, hey, I watched your videos. I've done this, I've done that. And I just really have to encourage everybody for the new year to take a step forward. Whether you have a new business, whether you have an existing business, whether you had a business that maybe failed online previously and you need to re-educate yourself or reinvent yourself, there is so much opportunity out there now that there is no reason why you shouldn't be successful. Because success comes in different increments and it comes in all different types, right? Could be monetary, could be your time. There's so much that goes into being successful, right? And the concept of success. And when you really think about it, you could do it. You could take the first steps. And I see, again, I come from the gaming roots. I came from electronic gaming, collectibles and toys and fandom. And, now I work with, Fortune 500 companies and people and business owners that want to build and continue to understand the business. And you know what? It's not an easy track. This was very hard. This took years. This took like 2 or 3 years of hard work. I see a lot of people who are like, well, I don't understand how to get traffic to my site. I don't understand where to, how you do videos, how you do this. Well, guess what, guys? I'm going to offer you guys that information.